días, buenas tardes, good afternoon, good morning. We'll be taking the session in English today, but as you see in the title, this session will cover mostly Latin America. So if there is some question later in Spanish, we'll be happy to translate it to just to open the conversation in the following part. So, well, nice to meet you, everyone. Pablo Peña from the IOM Shelter Unit. And today we're going to have an overview of one experience that we have working with the private sector donor partner in Latin America that aims to expand the access to temporary accommodation for migrants in the region. No? So basically, what we're going to see today. Okay. Today we're going to see briefly a little bit of context about the displacement trends in Latin America. Why is this profile of project relevant? A little bit specific to the temporary accommodation needs in Latin America in the context that we face. I'm joining the Latin America part. Also about the project implementation, we are presenting today an experience funded by Airbnb.org, which has provided temporary accommodation to migrants in the region. We will go further then, and we will categorize the profiles that need to be part of this kind of project for it to be successful. And for each of these stakeholders, if you wanted, parts of the elements of the project, which are beneficiaries, hosts, organizations who refer cases, and obviously the donor, the broader coordination, we will find for each profile challenges, opportunities, and lessons learned that will be presented by countries who are connected now, who are obviously implementing the project. And then we have conclusions and a Q&A that hopefully will be useful for everyone. So, okay, so we begin with a little bit of context. In Latin America, displacement trends, three main topics in the last years, in no order of priority, but this is what it is. A Venezuelan migration crisis, as you know, there is an estimated over 7.8 million people displaced, with 6.7 in Latin America. This is according to the R4B, the Response for Venezuelans platform. It's one of the largest displacement crises globally, putting some pressure, obviously, in host countries and host communities within the region. That's one of the obviously biggest displacement trends in the region. The other is disaster-induced displacement. If you see, the numbers are very high. 152 million people affected by disaster since 2000, with millions exposed. There is a high levels of vulnerability, several types of disasters who are maybe different in the scale, in intensity, in frequency to what they were before. So that's also causing displacement in the region. And the third topic is the political instability, the conflict, internal displacement that can cause cross-border migration, refugee situations due to governance challenges, insecurity, environmentally related, climate change related situations. So all of this causes an interesting profile of displacement trends in the region, and within all the needs that a displaced person in the region can have. Today we're going to dive a little bit in the temporary accommodation needs in Latin America. Obviously, there is a need because, as you said, there was a lot of people in displacement. This has grown, if we want, since 2018, since the Venezuelan migration crisis, which has exacerbated these challenges. There is millions of displaced people requiring immediate shelter, but not obviously only immediate shelter, also mid long-term overview of solutions. The traditional, if you want, traditional humanitarian response relies on collective centers, transit center shelters, but these often face challenges, regarding to overcrowding. It's super expensive to keep one of these places working. You see in the photo, that's in the Darien region in Panama. So I think that's a typical profile in the region. There is people in transit, which is also particular. There is different profiles of beneficiaries which require longer or shorter time of accommodation. It's like harder to put in one profile of the displaced person because there could be in the same region somebody displaced due to conflict and then but also another person affected by the Venezuelan migration crisis and another person affected by disaster. It all can happen in the same region, so in the same community even. So that obviously causes the different profiles to require longer or shorter time of accommodation according to their needs, according to the profiles of vulnerability, according to documentations, to regularization status, etc. And the governments in the region, many of them face challenges, obviously, because there is still, I don't know, limited experience in managing large-scale refugee situations. No? Some of the countries in the region didn't have this situation before, so that obviously represents a challenge for them. So what are we doing? What we are going to deep today is this experience working with the private sector donor, which is Airbnb.org, and you will hear it from the colleagues in the field how this is being implemented. But just to put a little bit of context, what this has provided us is with more alternatives, yes, flexible and scalable alternatives to provide accommodation to people in need. Because yes, you can have a shelter, yes, you can have a transit center, you can have an hotel, and you can have an Airbnb. So this broadens the profile of options. Why? Because in the region, in most cases, these needs arise in urban areas. So in urban areas, there is normally, not in all, but in some or most of them, the capability to use these kind of services. It's also important to mention the role that hotels have in this context, because hotels are also private sector providers that, if you want, they benefit from these situations where there is a larger number of persons passing through those regions, or maybe to regions that they didn't used to have that number of persons passing through or being displaced through there. So that's also important to contextualize. And as it's written there is challenges in expanding the accommodation capacity, especially in urban areas. And there is a need as temporary housing also to another profile, which is migrants who are being integrated to the countries, asylum seekers who are waiting for the procedure, so they need a temporary space until they in most cases, or in some cases, get this, for example, regularization regarding documentation that allows them to stay in X country. Our experience from IOM working with Airbnb, this is a partnership who's long-standing since 2022. We have supported more than 70,000 people in 25 countries worldwide. This has not only been implemented in Latin America. Now we are focusing on it, but this has also been implemented in other regions. And these have profiles, obviously, of people supporting migrants, refugees, IDPs. As I was saying, it offers decentralized accommodation that can adapt to emergency or to protracted displacement context. And there is challenges and opportunities that we will obviously focus now and go to a further level with explanations from the countries. So just to not talk that much, last part. This is a little bit of the structure that we have been implemented in the project. These are like the key roles that are part of it, and you see on the left like their role, no, what they do, what is their responsibility, if you want. And you see from the donor side the rules, the conditions, the procedures. From the project coordination side, there is a role of prioritizing countries, determining the budget, monitor, open this kind of intervention to new countries, new emergencies within the same country even, because that also happens. And there is, and you will hear it now from implemented countries, putting all of this in reality, no? Okay, there is an SOP, okay, but this SOP will not work the same in, I don't know, Brazil and Uruguay, they're completely different places. Contextualizing the needs, contextualizing also the legislation, that's super important, because in some countries, legislation can have a huge impact regarding the possibility to provide temporary accommodation, or making it harder, making it easier, can be different. And working also the exit plans. This is super important when a person is provided with a service within this project, and obviously within any temporary accommodation service. You need to know what will happen next when this support finish. So that's also that needs to be contextualized by the implementing countries. So we have identified three key stakeholders, such as beneficiaries, the organizations who refer cases, and hosts. And each of these key stakeholders will be presented by one different country. Why? Because they had maybe some specific situations, specific reality in their countries that maybe is something more interesting to see, but also something that can be replicable. No? This is the idea of this presentation, is the saying, okay, this works here, this has worked, obviously perfect, nothing, but this is what has been going on, and what can be replicable, what can be useful, what can be, yes, maybe more structure in order for replicability. So now I leave you with Juan Carlos and Natalia from Colombia to talk about beneficiaries.
Thanks, Pablo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are from Colombia, Natalia Ramirez, and me, Juan Castillo from IOM. I apologize for my English pronunciation, please. So, okay. Colombia is one of the main host country for displaced population in Latin America, with nearly 3 million Venezuelan migrants and refugees and approximately 9 millions internally displaced persons, as well as communities affected approximately by other events related to internal conflict and disasters. Uh, is this important to mention in this context? The project successfully provide comprehensive assistance to more than 1,200 people, granting them access to shelter and this was made possible through collaboration with the strategic cooperation partners, governments, entities, and IOM's one's response team in the field now. Also, the project supported many vulnerable groups, including, for example, families require short-term accommodation, often affected by disaster or conflict, particularly internally displaced people. For example, right now, the emergency response in northern Colombia, in the Catatumbo region, right now. The other individuals waiting regular legal status or employment to facilitate long-term integration. Also, internally displaced people are affected by violence and disasters. And finally, survivors of violence, single mothers, and other vulnerable individuals in need of safe shelter. Next slide, please. Okay, it is important to mention, like any project, this initiative faced some challenges that were addressed through its implementation. The most significant ones included um, identifying participants based on their needs, characteristics, and legs of the state. For example, in traditional shelters, the legs of stay is shorter compared to the Airbnb project. Also, ensuring rapid referrals while meeting protection standards and prioritization criteria. Um, Also coordinating with organization and local authority to integrate Airbnb stay into broader response initiatives. And additionally, the project required fully dedicate personnel to facility coordination and carry out field activities. And in opportunities, the Airbnb.org project also brought significant opportunities that strengthened both local and national humanitarian response, such as the flexible Airbnb that our model has enabled more difficult provide and secure housing for migrants who do not fit into traditional shelter models. No? Decentralized accommodation allows for better inclusion in urban areas where many displaced populations seek work and service, and also strengthened referral pathways between humanitarian actor and private sector solution can enhance response effectiveness. It's very important developing market-based intervention that contribute to local economic growth. The project generates valuable lessons that contribute to learning quality and efficiency in humanitarian response. Some case takeaway include clean referrals criteria and a strong coordination with organization and local authorities, and enhance the impact and effective of temporary stays. And also case management beneficiaries transition for temporary accommodation to more stable housing solutions. And finally, private sector solution can complement traditional humanitarian efforts, but sustainability depends on long-term funding and integration efforts. And so finally, the Airbnb.org project made a significant contribution to addressing the needs of migrants and internally displaced persons. It strengthened the coordination of humanitarian assistance and helped bridge housing gaps in the areas where it was implemented in Colombia specifically. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Just to continue, now we make a wrap up. We're going now to the host, the profile of the host stakeholder presented by IBM Peru, Michelle Pazmiños, here with us. Well, it's connected with us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So, I will start just to give you a little bit of a context about the migration flows in here in Peru. So Peru hosts over 1.6 million of Venezuelans, migrants, and refugees. And we also have significant internally displacement due to disasters. Just to give you some figures, between 2008 and 2023, nearly 850,000 people got internally displaced in here. And only in 2023, we have a huge cyclone where around 188,000 people got displaced. And it's only alone in 2023. So this gives us, of course, it's a challenging situation, but also gives us the opportunity to explore new ways to do our work, especially in in temporary accommodation. So in related to this specific project that we are implemented with Airbnb.org, we have been working on building up the capacities of hosts. So, and the good practice that we want to share in here is the building of the development of a network of hostings, the hosts in here in Peru. So this network of hosts have currently we have 5 hotel owners. So usually these hotel owners are not involved in humanitarian response. They are not. We need to be clear about this. They are part of the private sector, but usually they are not involved in any type of emergency response. So this involves a lot of work with them to train them, to raise awareness about the situation, and to try to engage them in participate in this project. And we work as well with 30 Airbnb hosts, private hosts, which whom we create and develop this network of private hosts. What we did is we create a model of training involving different topics like preventing sexual exploitation and abuse, accountability to affected population, protection in emergencies, also shelter standards as well, to make sure that we guarantee that the people that were receiving this service have the same standard in any accommodation that they receive. Could you please go to the next slide? So regarding the challenges, what we, of course, we face different situations depending on the region. As you might know, Peru is a big country, and most of the services are usually concentrated in Lima. So the different standards between Lima and other parts of the country, for example, Tumbes in the border region, Tacna, or Lambayeque, for example, that was one of the places that got affected by the cyclone in 2023. The situation is different in these cities, and of course the standards of the host were different. So what we want to make sure is that regardless of the place that the host is located, the standard needs to be the same. So that's something that we work really hard during the implementation of the project to make sure that this is maintained during the whole implementation of the project. Other challenge that we face is the fact that we need to building up capacities. So that means that we need to have a dedicated staff to coordinate a network of hosts, as well as to provide training, to provide raising awareness sessions with the communities, with the hosts, with the beneficiaries, to make sure that the people that we were hosting on those places were secured and were protected, and that we are in compliance with our internal standards. Regarding the opportunities, we think that working with hotel owners was a good practice and a good experience, and it gives us the opportunity to quickly identify places to families to be host in. Usually we have emergency cases, and it could take a bit more time to locate it in a Airbnb apartment, to say so. So when those emergency cases arose, we have these specific hotel owners when we can locate families, for example. So working with them is something that we think that has a lot of potential. What we did also is we work with the communities. We think that we need to empower local communities, as well as something really important that we need to highlight is that the fact that we are renting to local hosts, Peruvian hosts, it means also that we are contributing to the local economy. So it is really important to highlight this and to work with the communities to let them know that this project, that the services that they are providing to migrants and refugees also had benefits for them and for their communities. And also what we think that is an opportunity is that it helps us transition in between a fully humanitarian response project to a long-lasting solution for the families as well as for the communities as well as for the hosts. So we are building long-lasting, long-term collaborations and links between the humanitarian organizations as well as the private hosts and the communities. Regarding the lessons learned, we think that establishing a clear communication with the hosts as well as the communities is key and is important, because most of them, they don't know a lot about the humanitarian world, to say so. They don't know how who we are and what we do and our standards and why we are doing this. So we need to communicate to them. We need to create specific messages to them to let them know what we are doing, why we are doing this, and how their involvement is also impacting in the lives of this vulnerable population that we are assisting. We think that something that is key is to continuously monitoring. It is really important to conduct regular assessments on the places, as well as to regular assessment with the hosts, with the families, to make sure that we are that we are maintaining our standards across the whole project. And also having this continuous monitoring of the host and also with the beneficiaries help us to provide rapid response to any issue that might arise. Host assistance feedback, we think that this is really important, and for us was like a big surprise. We conduct interviews with families to make sure that we got their point of views about the service that they receive, and also try to understand if there is any space to improvement from us, from IOM, and also from the host that we were working with. And something really interesting happened. The feedback that the families gave to us, for example, they need to change in a specific apartment, we need to change, I don't know, the water facilities, or we need more kitchen supplies. So what we did with that is we talked with the hosts to try to let them know that maybe there is a little bit of a room to improvement, and they accept this as a good feedback, as a thing for them also to improve their accommodation, because they are not only hosting migrants and refugees, they are also hosting other people. So they accepted, they made improvements in their own accommodation, and and now the accommodation that they're providing is better. So this is from our side. This is the experience of Peru right now. Our network of hosting actors has around 35 members across nationwide.
Thank you, Michelle. So now we continue with the organizations who refer cases with Dulce from Mexico.
Thank you, Pablo. Well, good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dulce Maria Luna, and I'm part of the IOM team in Mexico. Sorry, but I'm going to turn off my camera because I get distracted easily. So sorry. Well, today I want to talk to you about how, in the face of the growing number of migrants and refugees arriving in Mexico, it is becoming increasingly necessary to have concrete support mechanisms that ensure their safety and well-being. One such solution has been the use of temporary accommodation through the Airbnb platform, which has significantly contributed providing safe spaces. Mexico has become a key host country for displaced populations. Every year, it receives thousands of migrants and refugees, many of whom require temporary housing to continue their migration regularization process, job search, and social and community integration. But not all cases can be treated in the same way. That's why a structured referral system is essential, because it allows to identify the most vulnerable individuals, establish clear prioritization criteria, and ensure that temporary accommodation truly fulfills its protective purpose. Now, I would like to share an example of how Mexico worked with an organization. In Mexico, one of the most important aspects of building alliances was ensuring that involved organizations had a strong sense of responsibility in case management. A clear example was the collaboration with Casa Frida, an organization that supports migrants in vulnerable situations, especially those from the LGBTI community. For each referred individual, specific selection parameters were established. First, evaluate whether they have sufficient financial resources to support themselves during their stay. If not, Casa Frida sought alternatives to cover basic needs like food. They also show relevant information to better assess the cases, such as legal orientation or psychological attention also. A key criterion was to ensure that each referred case had a clear exit strategy. Following the IOM's do not harm principle, we ensured that Casa Frida followed each case from entry to exit, principally before the case was accepted, because sometimes Casa Frida refers to IOM some cases that doesn't fit with the profile that we were looking for. One of the most effective strategies was job placement, which helped facilitate successful integration into the local community. Casa Frida established a big strong alliance also with the Mexican government. And here in Mexico, in the south of the country, in a city that the name is Tapachula, they have a program that help migrant people to start their integration process in the city by looking for some employees. And Casa Frida helped a lot with that. And also for us, it was a very helpful exit strategy, because sometimes we find some profiles that they were vulnerable, but they don't have a exit strategy. So for us, it was not the best profile, because we don't want to face problems in the future, and also to provoke bad situations for the people, because we have to evaluate what would happen before the exit. Also, Mexico works with other key actors, such as another local and international NGOs specializing in migration and humanitarian assistance. And even with civil society organizations with close links to displaced people, government agencies responsible for asylum and protection, and with some UN agencies involving humanitarian response. Could you change the next slide, please? Thank you. Even we identify some key challenges that we want to share with you. The number one is defining appropriate referral criteria to ensure stays are assigned to those most in need. Because even there are so many profiles that maybe doesn't fit in the profile that we are looking for. For example, some profiles that even they don't know what they will what even they don't know what will be the next plan for the future, or even maybe some people cross from Guatemala to Chiapas 1 day ago. So maybe that profile is not the best, because we are looking for the integration here in Mexico. So we help, but we canalize it to another organizations or to help with another service. But that is very important. But even it was a challenge for us, because there are a lot of profiles that maybe doesn't fit. Also, coordinating among multiple organizations to avoid duplication or victimization. This is very, very important because here in Mexico, there are a lot of organizations that also provide this assistance. So we try to communicate with the NGOs or with the agencies to avoid these situations and help more people. And finally, providing post-stay support, such as employment access, legal orientation, and long-term housing. This is a challenge, but as I mentioned before, with Casa Frida was very, very helpful, that Casa Frida has a strong structure and a strong alliance with many, many organizations also. But even this experience also highlighted valuable opportunities. For example, strengthening multi-actor collaboration, as seen with Casa Frida. It was helpful for IOM because we also know more organizations that can attend more topics, and this was very, very good for us, because now if we have another case, we can analyze for that organization or for that NGO. Also, strengthening multi-actor collaboration, as it with Casa Frida. Casa Frida was a strategic partner for us. And also digitizing referral process through centralized tools and systems with the platform that we use in internal. It was very helpful for us also. And raising awareness among more organizations to expand coverage. It was very good, because when we started here in Mexico, it was a little bit difficult, because as many of you know, there are a lot of people that here in Mexico that also are seeking for asylum or for so many procedures of many kinds of regularizations. So how can I say? It was good, because if we have a lot of profiles, we can also know many other organizations that can help them. And also, I want to share how this experience leaves us two key lessons. The first one is that a clear and structured referral process is essential to ensure the program benefits the right people, as I said before. And follow-up is fundamental. Without it, temporary risk becoming a fragile solution for the people. And to conclude, initiatives like Airbnb.org, when implemented with a humanitarian approach and in collaboration with responsible organizations like Casa Frida and like another organization that we work, can have a transformational impact on the lives of displaced people. So thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, gracias, Dulce. And just to close this profile of stakeholders, briefly about the relationship with the donor, like a centralized project coordination, if you want, a little bit of what we have done. We have reached a huge number of beneficiaries, more than 17,000. But just to highlight, it's to vary different displacement contexts and emerging crises. There is a flexibility that we want to acknowledge that it needs something important. For example, in December, we were able to make a quick response to the Vanuatu earthquake, which was something very focalized, and this was a tool that provided us a fast way to make a response. A flexible donor, not only funding accommodation, but also promoting intervention in new crises, as the one that I was mentioning. And again, that's something that was mentioned before. This also supports the host. No, in most cases, the hosts are also members of a local community who got benefit from this kind of support these activities. No. Same structure challenges, adapting models to different operational environments. As you can see, each country, even in one region, and if we open to more regions, will be a different world. And even inside the country, the north, the south, the center will be completely different in some cases operationally also. So that's important to understand and to obviously put it in practice. Balancing donor flexibility with structured implementation, ensuring both responsiveness and accountability. No, it's okay, we can move faster, but how we know what we are doing. So that's the idea. Opportunities, again, scaling interventions to new crises, strengthening data collection and impact measurements. It's hard to gather information in this kind of context. We all know it, but I think this possibility of a private sector donor to move faster also implies a challenge. Okay, we move faster, but how we know what we are doing, where we are doing, how we gather information. That's an opportunity in itself, no? Because okay, it's a challenge, but also an opportunity. And an opportunity can be to develop long-term collaboration models. No, this is an experience that we are doing now, but obviously in a long-term thinking about like more time doing this humanitarian profile, but also if we think about other profiles, not only the ones who Mexico was talking about the integration process. No, there is people who maybe will need more than 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know, but we need more time to provide yes, to cover the procedure that they are working in different countries. Lessons learned, a flexible donor approach enables faster adaptation, strong reporting, again, and engaging hosts as participants. That makes things faster, no? Because now you know the hosts and you don't have to explain them from zero. They know what this is about and they know that they are benefiting somebody who needs it. But they are sure that we are making a procedure, as you saw, to evaluate the person, to gather the data, to know who they are. And obviously nothing is perfect in the world, but this gives a little bit more of accountability from the host side. No, that's something that we want to highlight. Brief ideas, and then we open the microphone, please. This is a critical need in the region, and this requires innovative solutions, can require different profile of partnerships, more partnership. This is one way of expanding the options to provide accommodation, but there could be more, obviously. Public-private collaboration, digital platform, flexible funding models help address the gaps in shelter capacity, especially in urban areas, especially in the region when the local shelter capacity is very limited, very, very limited. It's sometimes in most cases, briefly thinking, in most of cases of the region related to church organizations or to church itself or to some civil society organizations, but it's very limited in huge cities. No, Mexico City, 20 million people. It's a huge challenge. And different actors, stakeholders, as you saw, play key roles. No, beneficiaries must shape the program design. The hosts require incentives and support to ensure the quality of the stays. Referring organizations are crucial for case management, obviously I am also. And sustained donor engagement ensures long-term impact. It's not that Mexico only makes the organizations part. No, you saw everyone makes all the components, and that's what it makes it work. No, that every country needs to understand that these are all the components needed for an intervention like this to work well, we hope. So that's from our side. We open the microphone, please. Questions, doubts? Not only for me, obviously. There is the colleagues also connected. Or if somebody connected, please have any question. Anna, please.
Thank you. Thank you all for the presentation on the different context. I have a question maybe like linked to something that Michelle presented on Peru, but maybe others have also answers. I was wondering how you manage not to discourage hosts by the host engagement activities. Like, what is the balance between not making it too heavy of an engagement capacity building program for hosts, so they are not discouraged, and whether it has led to increase of prices of accommodation, like this increase in standards and aligning with minimum considerations, and how do you manage that within the project? Is there a maximum per night stay price, or how do you manage that so prices don't get inflated over?
Michelle, please.
Yeah, regarding the trainings that we provide to the host, we try to meet. Let's be real about that. Of course, we cannot have a extensive training with them because, of course, they have other activities, other economic activities. They work, for example. So we have to have reduced sessions that we gave them in different days and different weeks to try to accommodate to their schedules. What we think that it is really important, and it is going to sound extremely silly, the fact that we brought them to our office in here in IOM make a totally different it gives the project a different a symbolic importance. I don't know how to explain it, but it was the first time for them to see, okay, if anything happened, there is this structure that is going to back me up, right? So they feel extremely proud to receive the training. So they were extremely enthusiastic as well to receive the training on protection. We do also talk a little bit about migration management, because here in Peru there are specific laws related to hosting migrants and refugees with a non-regular status, for example. So we need to cover those things as well, that this information is also useful for them to host other individuals. So we have to accommodate the schedules. For example, we did the trainings at night or really late in the afternoon to try to accommodate to their schedules. We focus on shelter standards, protection, PSCA, that we think that is extremely important given the circumstances of this specific project, that a lot of humanitarian workers are going to have contact with the affected population. We also provide mechanisms for receiving feedback from the families if anything is happening, or they are not feeling comfortable, or something urgent is happening. Related to the prices, the feedback that the hosts received, there were not big changes that they had to make in the accommodation. There were small things. And this, of course, will not affect the price. The price is still the same. And it is really interesting because Lima is a big city, right? We're talking about around 11 million people. And Pablo, please correct me if I'm giving a wrong figure. But we are talking about 11 million people living in Lima. And of course, the different districts have different social and economic conditions. So it is not the same, for example, an Airbnb in Villa María del Triunfo than an Airbnb, for example, in Surquillo, for example. They are different standards, and as well as services in those districts that can alter the price of the Airbnb. However, the price was not changed related to the improvements that the host made, but the price, of course, is different between where these hosts are located, in which district they are located.
Thank you, Michelle. Just to complement Has. Peruvian now, you know. Well, it happened. I remember a lot. One of the first sessions. There, some of, not all of them, but some of the hosts were migrants. One of them, I remember, migrated to Venezuela in the 80s, because in the 80s Venezuela was the boom of oil and all of this. So it was very interesting to find this profile of people who is convinced of the topic, involved in the migration, feels it personally, and that makes obviously a host with whom it's easier to work and faster, and it was super interesting. About the amount, there is a monitoring from the central coordination. There is not like a top amount, but there is an average per country that when it moves above the normal average, the coordination raise the alert. Dulce can say about that. That can happen because that's adaptable to the situation, but there is a monitoring of that point. Someone else, please. Somebody connected? Please go ahead.
I have quite a few questions. Generally, I'm coming from the private sector. That's why I'm not so into these topics. The community involvement, the success, how much is the success? Because the conflicts, we hear a lot about conflicts. If I take, not even in so dramatic sceneries like migrants, but you have, I remember in Italy, avalanche, they were putting these people without houses in the hotels. This was causing a lot of conflicts. With refugees, you put in private accommodations. This is a high potential of conflict with the community. That's why this involvement, I think this has to be very, very important. So my question is, how much success do you have? And if I see the figure from Peru with 5 hotels arrangements and 30 Airbnb hosts arrangements, with those figures, millions of people of Venezuela and domestic migration, you have to start somewhere, of course, and you start always slowly. But how is it? Of course. But hope is always there, of course. But is there a statistic you can see it's rising? Thank you for these questions.
Thank you. Maybe I start briefly about there is a reality that in some cases there has been some people who is reluctant to work with us. That we have in part of the SOP and a standard first approach discourse for the people that will work. We hope that we will work with the project because maybe they have the accommodation in the best place, but they can just not want to work with us. And that's something that happens. And that's why maybe the number of hosts, it's narrow, but it's because they are the ones who are willing to work with us. And that's something that makes things easier and faster later. The success of the involvement of the, if we understand community like at a broader level beyond the host and the people who is around them, that's an integration challenge that maybe this project puts their little bit, su granito de arena, the small piece. When somebody asks us, okay, but the one who is being rented is a local neighbor who have a room in the neighborhood. It's not that this big hotel chain that can be used, yes, but in this case, maybe that's a way of putting that in profile if there is some resistance from the local community. Just to point, the hotel, the support with hotels has been done with the Airbnb project, but also in some countries, Ecuador also have an hotel intervention with another donors that can complement this. And yes, that's from my side. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to complement, please, or somebody else.
Yes, I was going to add that because the Airbnb.org project cover a specific type of services that we have. But of course, as I am in here, we have different shelter solutions in here in the country as well. So in order to prevent any conflict, what we have learned, because we start our providing temporary accommodation to migrants and refugees entering the country in 2017. So we have a big operation in the borders, and we used to host around 200 people per day. So it was a big operation, and that, of course, led us with a lot of knowledge about what we should implement to prevent any conflict with the hotel owners as well as with the people that we serve. So, for example, in these trainings that we provide, we also talk a little bit more about, for example, standards of conduct. What is allowed, what is not allowed in these spaces. What is expected from the host as well as from the family that is being hosted in those places. So we, of course, that means that we need to have in hotels, when we have this big operation, we have 2 colleagues 24/7 in those spaces, making sure that we don't have any protection risk, that everything is working accordingly to our standards. So it is a full-time job, and in order to guarantee that the service that the assistance that we are providing is made under our standards. That's from the first side. To the other side, related to the how we engage communities. As Pablo was mentioned, something that is really important is to realize that the fact that these families are receiving money for renting these spaces also help us to create this network to publicize the network as well, because communities, people, the hosts talk with each other in their neighborhoods, and then they start asking for this. And of course, they are seeing that migration is also bringing good things for them and for their communities, because that means that they are also increasing their incomes. And we have, of course, Lima has some district that has specific challenging situations related to incomes, family income. So the fact that they are receiving money help us to change the narrative related to migration. So, and of course, the fact that we are behind this, and as IOM, we are behind this process and making sure that communication works between the host, the families, and also we are backing up the host as well as the family in the whole process. Guarantee that this inclusion process is made in a smooth way.
Please, can I just add another question? What is the average time, temporary time, these people are staying in those hosts? How many days? 3 days, 1 week, 1 month? Because this is the problem. The longer they stay, the more they say, if they change, okay, the community is surely accepting it easier than if it's always the same people 1 year there.
We had a top of 29 nights for the last implementation. That was the top, but the average of each country is different. In some countries, for example, I have the numbers, but I remember Colombia had like 3-4 nights in average. It depends on the context, but the top was 29 nights.
And it's okay. Sorry.
No, thank you. Somebody else? Carolina, please.
Thanks. I'm Carolina Cordero. I work with Pablo in the implementation of this project. So I think that your question is very relevant, because when we started this project, we had some of those concerns, and I think what we found is that the response has been overwhelmingly positive across all of the 27 countries where we have worked. A lot of the flexibility that has been built into this project has allowed people also to choose the places where they want to stay. And so many people look for where other people that they know are staying, for locations that maybe are known to them. And that kind of flexibility again has kind of given the both the host and the beneficiary the option to decide whether this accommodation is suitable or not. We also had an amazing relationship with our donor, where we had, for example, we've had people that arrive in an accommodation and they don't feel safe, and so we're able to immediately refer them to a different location. We had cases, for example, with the Ukraine crisis in Europe, where we were providing humanitarian transportation from the point of entry to the cities, and within that 3-hour bus ride from the border in Hungary to where they were staying, we were able to book accommodation for people in the location that worked best for them. Again, we had a lot of very diverse set of people coming through with diverse needs, and the flexibility that the platform gave us to be able to choose accommodation of for different number of people with mobility impairments. Gave us again a set of tools that we wouldn't have otherwise had. But I think again, for the most part, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. I think the fact that, as was mentioned, the first contact that any host receive is from IOM explaining why and why we are supporting accommodation for these groups of families, and explaining the length and the support that we provide, has meant that people have the choice to say, yes, we want to participate, or no, I rather not. And so again, that has been quite positive for us to know that this is completely voluntary from the host side to accept or not. And I think that for the most part, we have not had many cases where people have said no. The other good thing about the partnership is that the fees are waived for the host and for the booking organization. And so immediately the hosts are not only receiving the normal fees that they would for renting their home, but also they're getting a discount from using the platform. So it's a kind of win-win on all aspects. Over.
Thank you, Carolina. Questions? Somebody from the teams? Somebody connected? Please.
Yes, hello, I'm Marcia Vargas. I work with the Center of Competence on Humanitarian Negotiations, and I find this really, really interesting. But I was wondering how you guarantee the security for the hosts, actually, and the apartments, and because, well, we need to be realistic, but people can misbehave. And that happens a lot from what I heard in the private life of people. They do big parties and so on and so forth. So migrants are not different. They are people as everyone else. So I wonder how you are guaranteeing that security and the protection actually of the hosts.
Carolina, or if somebody from the offices?
Maybe I'll just start. Sorry, I changed the mic because that one's hard to access. Just the kind of general in terms of the kind of overall response. So one of the first things that we did when we first started this partnership in 2022 was to develop information sheets for both the host and for the people that were staying in the accommodation, explaining the rules, explaining the rights and the responsibilities. And as the colleagues mentioned, making sure that there is complaints and feedback mechanisms that are active for both the host and the hosted family. We had some cases of damages, of not really knowing some of the appliances work and things like that. Luckily, because of the partnership that we had with the platform, we were also able, for anybody staying in this Airbnb hosted locations, the insurances that exist for any normal stay apply as well, and the Airbnb team has been extremely quick and supporting those issues. So whenever there was a damage or whenever there was a claim, they immediately put those cases to the top of the queue to be able to resolve them really quickly, precisely because we didn't want to have any issues with a perception that this is because is this kind of population. And I think the work that Peru talked about engaging with hosts is not only about telling them that we need to protect the people that are staying in their homes, but it's also about you also have protection from any kind of exploitation, any kind of abuse. And so that was a key part of the messages that we were sharing with the host from the start. We also, maybe something we didn't mention here is that in the platform, you have the option to have a room in a house or in an apartment. And for this particular program, we said it can only be a whole house or a whole apartment that can be rented, so that we're not putting people in an uncomfortable position to have to share kind of very private spaces. So I think that helped as well to mitigate any of those risks. But yes, there were some, questions that we had to deal with damages or normal wear and tear, I suppose, from families. But yeah, it's been again overwhelmingly positive.
And it was also a learning process for the hosts. It's not that all of them were experienced hosts. Some of them were new. So it was the first time that they faced something like this. And if we are there in the middle, that speeds up the process, that makes it like, I don't know. There is somebody supporting who have reference of something similar that could have happened in another context, and that's useful for them in their normal renting life to somebody in vacations or whatever. There is a hand. I can't see whom, but please go ahead.
Yeah, just I want to add something that I think that is important, is the fact that even though, of course, there are these cases, they are not the majority. And this is really important to highlight, because when we identify the families to be assisted with this project, and with any other temporary accommodation project, there are families with and they are living in extremely hard circumstances. They are traveling in extremely hard circumstances. So for most of them, the assistance that we provide is absolutely life-saving. So they make sure that they are complying with every single rule and responsibility related to taking care of the space, because they know that if they fail to comply these rules, for example, they are not going to be allowed to stay in the place. For example, if they do parties, or they create any big damage, etc., right? So this is really important, because we don't have, of course, we had cases where there were misunderstandings between the hosts and the families, or there are minor damages that got resolved really quickly, as Carolina said. But it is really important to highlight that since that families need so desperately this assistance, they make sure that they stay in there as long as they can. As Pablo said, it's 29 days, while we work on an exit solution for them. Because what is really important is that we connect this with other interventions to make sure that they have an exit solution that is again sustainable in a long term.
Thank you. Somebody else? Something else?
I have perhaps later because it's something, you know, you were talking about insurance. As I'm a loss adjuster in my background, I'm asking which insurance is insuring damages which are intentionally done. This is a technical question. I think don't want to annoy anybody here with this, but I would like to know which company is insuring this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And okay, well, just to complement the last one, that's the job, no? I think, no, in the day to day, when everything goes well, and okay, but the real job, it's being there in the moment when things are complicated. That can be at midnight or on Sunday or whatever. So that's just to recognize again the work of the team in the field, no, which are the ones who are face to face with these complexities, no. Okay, so if there is somebody else, I think we can wrap it up. We can close it. Thank you, obviously, for participating. There is the contacts.
Hi.
Please, sorry.
I'm Pascal Panosetti from the Global Social Cluster. Just sorry because I missed the beginning of the session. Just one question: what is the length about this contract with Airbnb and host and hosted family, and what is the exit strategy, which is always very challenging, like cash for rent? So. Just to have an idea. Thank you.
Okay, the length in the last project has been 29 nights top. That they can also. It's important to say that they don't need to be consecutive. They can be, I don't know, 5 days, and then 5 days can be that's the top. And the exit strategy is also part of the real job that each country does, because there is a process of selection of the countries that participate. So the countries that implement the project need to ensure that they have projects, or maybe not only from IOM, can be from another organizations, from the government, for example, that they can ensure that if somebody supported, they will have an exit strategy. This can be different things. Can be CBI, can be an involvement in a government project, can be an involvement in an IOM project related. Dulce was mentioning, I think in Mexico, about economical inclusion. That's something that happened also in Uruguay, that also implemented the project. CBI, from what I know in Chile, that's something that has been done. So solutions are very different, but that's why it's important to have the criteria of prioritization of the people that can effectively access to this process, as Mexico and Colombia was mentioning also. Because if you have a clear criteria adapted to the reality of each context, that's what will open the possibility of saying yes or no. And sometimes, obviously, you have to say no. This is not open for all the profiles. There is profiles that need to have an exit strategy in order to be supported in this project. Please.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is super interesting. I was wondering if this is a project that is still ongoing, and if you see any potential opportunities for it scaling up to even more locations. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the actual grant closes on Monday, so this part is closing. But obviously, the opportunity to continue or to expand it and to scale up, it's there. No, that what we presented today is more like a model of a way to things to consider it in order to implement something like this in different contexts, and it's something that we have done. No, Carolina mentioned this began in Ukraine and then in Turkey in another context, and this is now more in Latin America. But just to mention broadly, this was Uruguay, Chile, Ecuador, Guatemala, Colombia, Jamaica, Barbados, Saint Vincent, Guadeloupe, Vanuatu, Serbia, Poland, different contexts, and each one of them, this can be done. Yes, it requires work. It requires time of people to conceptualize it first. But yes, we think it's something scalable and replicable, and adapted to different types of crisis also. Because as it was mentioned in the beginning, this has been used in, displacement caused by conflict, but also for disasters, but different profiles of crisis. Or mixed crisis that also happens. That's why Colombia presented beneficiaries, because they had internal displacement, internal conflict, disasters, Venezuelan migration. So, all of it. Okay, so no. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to the team, to the people connect.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias.